Hello there, welcome to AM Business. Like most smartphone owners, I'm sure you have a game or two on your own phone that you tend to when bored. But do you know that these games, whether on your phone or console, are worth billions of dollars worldwide? Well, today on AM Business, we take a look at Ghana's untapped gaming world and its many potentials.
The video gaming industry has come a long way from the era of simple handheld break game and Game Boy to Xbox and PlayStation to more and more sophisticated cloud games and mobile games. Worldwide, gaming is a big industry with several actors including sound engineers, graphic designers, programmers and game developers. Here in Ghana, although the gaming industry is still in its infancy, there are independent developers creating interesting games in their small spaces. Meet Setriako Nyomi, creator of popular mobile phone game Owari 3D.
Owari 3D was actually, it started off as an experiment, a question really, to find out what kinds of games will a casual audience in Ghana or in Africa be interested in. One of the things I found out pretty early as a gamer myself was that not every Ghanaian subscribes to the idea of playing, big 3D shooters like, Call of Duty or FIFA or whatever. Most people just want to play a quick casual game on their mobile phone, and that's how the idea of Owari 3D was born. So that experiment was put out in the market in 2013. Prior to being put in the market, it actually did win the MTN Apps Challenge. And once it was out there, it was heavily patronized. It actually went over and above our expectations. We expected to get 10,000 downloads within about 6 months. We ended up getting that in 5 weeks. And from that point onwards, it kept on growing. At its peak, it hit around 480,000 downloads.
Owari 3D emerging as the winner of the MTN Apps Challenge set the pace for Setriako to go into games development.
All the tools that we use for development actually are on computers, so you can do this on a Mac or a PC. And we use this tool here called Unity, and we essentially build our gaming environment here. So we would build our hands. We would also build, the different boards that are used inside the game, and all of them pretty much come together here. And then, of course, we also have to write some code to tie it all together here. And once that is all done, we simply build it for our mobile phones. This is currently built for iOS, so for Apple users, but we can go through essentially the same process for Android phones as well. We intend to release this for both Android and iOS.
He's currently working on his new game, Mankala.
Mankala, we intend to be mobile as well. And it's not just intended for the Ghanaian market. As a matter of fact, we decided to go with the name Mankala and with the set of games or the family of Mankala games to target a much wider audience than just what we had in Ghana. Ghanaians know the Owari rule. In fact, they know two rules. They know Owari and Abapa. This version of the game that we're making, yes, it's a follow-up to Owari, but we're calling it Mankala because it doesn't just have Owari and Abapa. It has Owari, it has Abapa, it has Mangala, which is played in Turkey. It has Ayo, which is played in Nigeria. It has some games that are played in the Philippines, some games that are played in India, some games that are played in other parts of Asia, and there's even one that's played in Germany.
Having Owari and Mankala on your portable devices can be described as an ingenious blend of tradition and technology. So just like Setriako explained, this is where everything starts. They develop the game on their PCs, their laptops, and eventually migrate it onto their flexible devices like your phones. And so in this case, you can get it from the App Store for Apple users and also the Play Store for the Android users. And if you can watch Mike clearly and you know much about Owari, you notice I'm much on the losing side. I've in fact lost it. But then it's a very interesting game. And these kind of games, there are so many of them and so many indie, as they call themselves, as individual or independent developers who are coming up with several of such interesting games, which will eventually come up and hopefully create a very bigger market for this gaming industry. But the fact here is we have so many of these developers out there ready to do so much for this industry. But with the industry still at its early stages, operating in the space hasn't been easy. Game developers face a range of issues. Internet connections are slow, unreliable, and funding is a huge challenge.
I started off with Owari 3D. When I realized that there was the potential for success here, I figured in order to create the kind of experience that would appeal to an international audience, you need the resources, you need the funds. What I did from there was to take a higher paying job to raise the money to come back and work on games. So I had been doing that for the last 4 years just to raise the capital. And the story behind that is simply there is really no one at this point, at least in our parts, who is willing to, throw capital behind game development, because there haven't been any proven success stories coming from Ghana or even West Africa, where people are actually generating, good revenue from games or even breaking even from games. So you find lots of people start it as a hobby. They don't think of games as a service that they can, maintain for a long time and have, long replay value for. And that's pretty much because of the lack of funds, because they can't push the level of quality that is going to be appreciated by an international audience. Talent, while is readily available, I mean, you have several artists in Ghana and you have several sound engineers in Ghana. You have a lot of programmers in Ghana. All that talent pool is available in Ghana, but it's hard to get them to think about games as a thing that they actually can bring their talents to. Whenever you tell people, oh, let's build a game together, they feel, oh, no, that's too hard, or, games are not for us, or, there isn't a Ghanaian audience for games, but the numbers show otherwise. Talking about the numbers with regards to the people who play games, a lot of the attempts at developing games in Ghana have revolved around developing story-driven narratives, which, again, has a very niche audience. So you do have Ghanaians who want to play through a game from beginning to end, but as far as where the numbers are currently, most Ghanaians want to play a casual experience. And so while we want to begin by telling, immersive stories, you unfortunately have a situation where your average Ghanaian isn't, going to download that story-driven experience and play from end to end.
Worldwide, the video gaming industry is estimated to have generated about $135 billion in 2018. Smartphones led the way here with revenues of $50 billion, while tablets accounted for $11.4 billion. Here's a breakdown. The gaming industry is still projected to become a $300 billion industry by 2025, with a growth of mobile gaming and innovative offerings like cloud gaming. But here in Ghana, the industry is estimated to be about some $25 million, which is barely a scratch of the global wealth. So how do we tap into it? Media consultant Eric Elder makes a few suggestions.
Potential for Ghana is huge, just because of the market size in Africa, and that it's a pretty untouched market for the most part. It's so young, and I think things are going to change pretty dramatically over the next several years, especially 5 to 10 years, as these kind of infrastructure things get put in place. So, the increase of the number of smartphones is one thing. More accessibility to high-speed and low-cost internet is another thing. And like I said, really building that brand, that strong brand recognition in Ghana and other regions of Africa for really high-quality games. Taking note from other regions in the world, providing incentives for developers and for gaming studios, tax incentives to bring, invite talent from other places in the world, training opportunities, support conferences and get-togethers like this that increase the excitement and the opportunity that the gaming industry is, and just make everything a lot more visible.
For Setriako, the gaming community must be well organized.
I think first we need a community. we need for all the game development professionals and some of the creatives as well to come together and, acknowledge that we are here. We need to acknowledge each other and come together and help each other grow in the industry. Because when we work in silos, there's really not a lot achieved. But when we come together, we have a synergy and we can work together to accomplish more. Coming together also gives us better bargaining power, whether we're going for grants or we're going for investments. If we're coming together as a community and we're recognized as such, it's much easier for us to go in and have access to these things that would make our work a lot easier.
Meanwhile, some organizations such as MTN has already taken a leap to support the sector by providing infrastructure such as mobile payment platforms for local game content.
What revenues are supposed to be derived from gaming, which is projected globally to hit $196 billion within the next 3 years. This year is projected to earn around $152 billion. And so if you extrapolate that within the global setting and you bring it back to Ghana, the smartphone adoption is growing steadily. Mobile phones are getting into the hands of people. Then it's a good time to begin to look at how we can also take advantage of this and empower the youth to be able to create wealth for themselves within the ecosystem. So generally, our vision as MTN is to go into the new areas of growth where gaming is key for us as a business. Games, we've noticed that a lot of people within this country play games, but when it comes to certain levels of the gaming where they can make payments, there's a barrier there. And just last year, we've broken that barrier by enabling people to be able to pay using their mobile money on Google Play Store. So we saw that there's an opportunity there to now bring together all the stakeholders within the industry, enlighten them and make them aware that the population within the country can now be able to make payments even for games. It's not only those outside the country that can make payment.
Africa's gaming sector, and that includes Ghana, is on a course for a huge expansion with the growth of mobile phone penetration. As the industry becomes more complex, they require expanding teams of managers, programmers, sound engineers, and hence more opportunity for jobs for the teeming youth. On the global front, the gaming industry as of 2018 was estimated to be around 135 billion US dollars. But here in Ghana, the market is about $25 million. One would say just a tiny drop in the ocean. But then for a $135 billion market, clearly there's a lot of opportunity for one to benefit from this. But for us to reach there, like the levels of the Need for Speed, the Grand Theft Auto, the Mortal Kombat, there's clearly a need for more investment in this industry for us to be able to develop even bigger games to benefit from this gaming industry. So as MTN said, we need more investors on board and more education to make people aware of this particular space. Reporting for Joy Business, my name is Shleta Mohammed.
And that's today's edition of AM Business. I hope that you did enjoy it. Whilst you game, though, you have to be careful. Join us every Wednesday, courtesy EcoBank, the Pan African Bank, will bring you AM Business here on the AM show. Stay with us.